Hey gang, so I am at like close to the 10-minute mark of my kneading, and we can see we used to have this like really sticky mess, and it's still sticky, granted, but after almost 10 minutes of kneading, it's definitely more of a uniform mass. The salt incorporated really well, and now we can have this happy blob, and we can see, as a result, be much more vigorous with the kneading. Again, if I am not sweating while I am kneading my dough, I am doing it wrong. So think of it as a nice workout where you reward yourself with carbs, because that's the best workout. So this is, again, I do a really right, left, back and forth, and I kind of push it over itself. And then a couple of these. I find this just kind of, it also kind of gives you a feel of your dough, because it definitely feels different as you knead it. We twist around, mix it all together, and we're back. And this is what I'm going to do for a few more minutes. But I guess right now, actually, let's check on that window pane test. Oh, I need a bigger piece than that. So again, still very sticky, but if we pull it, see it forms a lot more of a membrane. And I can keep pulling it, and it only breaks when it's really, really thin. So it means it's close, it's close. It's not quite there yet, but a minute or two more of kneading, and we are gonna have some well-kneaded bread, ladies and gentlemen. And then we'll be ready to go for our first rise, which just means it's gonna hang out in a bowl for an hour in a warm place covered, so that the yeast, the lactic acid bacteria that are still here can make me some good carbon dioxide. Alrighty, I will see you in a bit. Hey, back again. It's been an hour. My bread has been rising. My kitchen is warm, so it has doubled in size, and I will show you what we're doing. So, once we're kind of at this point, a lot of this work is hands-off. Like I said, it takes a long time to make bread, which is fair, but it's because it takes a long time to rise. Like, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was complex gluten structures developed by yeast. So it takes a little bit of time. So I will show you from the table cam. So got my little bread boy, and we can see it definitely has risen. So we can, it's poofy. So I'm going to scoop it up. It's a little wet. Look, gluten. Without gluten, we wouldn't be able to stretch like this. Oh, it's very wet. Very wet. Okay, got it out of the bowl. Delicious. This is why it takes a little bit of work to make bread. So, again, flouring the old hands. And our surface is floured, and we are going to flatten this bad boy a little bit, because right now what we are doing is we are doing the pre-shape. So we want the bread to have shape, but we don't want it to just have like whatever. We don't want it to look like an ugly blob. We want to encourage it to actually look like a loaf. So this is part of the pre-shaping process. So I'm just going to kind of fold it, what we call an envelope fold, in both directions to just kind of encourage it, the glutens to form in a kind of flat shape. So I'm going to use a bench scraper for this, but you can really use your hands. This is one of those tools that like people are like, oh, you gotta have one, and it's like handy, but it's not life-changing. What I'm gonna do is, it's nice because if you go at it like at a fast speed, it kind of scoops up the end of your bread and dough so that you can fold it. And we fold it like so. We call that the letter fold. And then we give it a smoosh. We flip. Another smoosh. If you think you're going to make bread all the time, I do think a bench scraper is a nice little investment. It's not expensive. It's literally like a flat piece of metal that's not sharp. You could probably, if you're handy, make one at home. They also have lots of ones made out of plastic. So pick your poison. I like metal, but whatever works for you. And again, you just do a little speedy little stretch, fold like a letter, other end, stretch, fold like a letter. And I'm going to give it a little bit of a squish. I don't want it to really have seams, but see, this makes it just nice and round and a little more bread-like. And now I'm going to pop this back in the bowl for another hour, so we can have another nice little rise We will see you again later. Okay, see you in a bit. Hello again, it's been another hour. We are going to divvy our dough into two because it would be a massive loaf of bread. So, flour in the hands, scooping the dough out. It's risen a lot in the last hour, which is awesome. This part's pretty easy, and I'm going to kind of talk you through it still, and then we're going to hang out until, because it's like 2.5 hours till we get to bake this. Woo! I'm just scooping the dough out because it's pretty sticky still. So, but again, it's got a pretty good shape. We're going to do one of the last kind of pre-shape steps. First thing I'm going to do is kind of make it into a ball. Again, it's pretty sticky still, but that's fine. I just need it semi-round because we are going to cut it in half. Because again, we don't need a giant loaf of bread. My cousin just got home. That's fine. I'm going to let these sit for 20 minutes, and then I'm going to do one last shaping to make them nice and round, and then they're going to rise for 2 to 2.5 hours, and then we're going to be ready to bake. So I will see you then. Okay, last part of the day. We're almost done. We're in it for the long haul, but we're almost done. So, last thing we got to do is, because these little fellows have been rising for the past 2.5 hours-ish, they are ready to get scored and pop in the oven, which is awesome because that means I don't have to wear regular clothes and I can put on pajamas. So we're going to move on. So I got my little dough boys, and how I had them rise is I have them in a little cloth, in a bowl, and then I put a bunch of flour in the cloth to keep them from sticking. So you can see he's risen. They're very happy now. They're happy little critters. So how are we baking them? You can use a baking stone if you have one, but I don't have one because, as we've previously discussed, I'm cheap. So what I have is I have a baking sheet with just a silicone mat on them. You can get them at kitchen stores, but you can also get them for at the dollar store for like $2, and they work the just same. So go with the $2 in my personal opinion. So now we're going to take this, and this is kind of the tricky part. We're going to flip him. Ooh, he's a little sticky. Ooh, we're a little sticky. But we're going to get there together. I was going to say it's like ripping off a Band-Aid, but please don't rip it off like a Band-Aid. You're going to make a huge mess. Just like I'm doing right now. This fella might be a little lumpier than I intended, but that's okay. Because, you know, I don't really care if my bread's going to win any beauty contest, because at the end of the day, it's still bread and it's still going to taste good. So I'm just going to smoosh that side so it looks pretty, and then I'm going to turn the pretty side facing you, so we can pretend that didn't happen. So, what do we need to do now? We need to score this bad boy, and I just had the knife and I put it down. So, what you need to do is you need to score it. What does she mean by score, you may be asking? Scoring is basically cutting, like vents in your bread so that there's a way for it to expand. It's kind of like stretch marks of your bread. Kind of shows where the bread expands. My cousin is making egg salad at the table and didn't like that analogy, but I'm going with it. It's like stretch marks. You need some place for the bread to go as it grows. So by scoring it, you can decide where it grows, you can make a pretty pattern, you can do whatever you want, and that way you don't have your bread explode in the oven. Not that it's going to explode in like a volcano sense, but kind of like a pizza pop that's been in the microwave for too long sense. It's just going to kind of bleh out one side. It's not that pretty, but again, it's still bread, so if you forget, who cares? You're going to have a loaf of bread in like half an hour. So, technically there's like fancy knives you can buy for this, which basically the fancy bread knives are a razor blade taped to a stick, and I didn't have those, and I don't have them, so what I'm using is a craft knife because it's sharp. You could just use a sharp knife though. What we're going to do is we're just going to carve a pattern into the top. So what am I going to carve into this? So we're going to do the Science Hunter special again. We're going to go, There's our S. There we go. Sound effects are necessary. This is a very important step to bread making. When you make your shape, you might need to go over it a couple times. But again, I carved a little SV into mine because Science picture. That little beep was my oven preheating. Good timing. So, what I would do is I would flip out the other one and I would carve that one too, but I'm going to do that after because you don't need to watch me doing more steps once you've already seen me do it. Again, make any shapes you want. You could just do like a little crisscross on top. Some people draw fancy leaves. If you look on Instagram, everyone and their dog has a fancy way of doing it. Do whatever makes you happy. That's the goal of this. So, what we're going to do is once I've done that to both loaves, they're all turned out, your oven is preheated. It's preheated at 450. Is that really high? Yes. Is it necessary? Also yes. It helps with crust development. Otherwise, you kind of end up bread that's more like a muffin. It cooks, if it's at a lower temperature, it cooks more slowly, and you're not going to get like a crunchy crust and then like a soft inside. You're kind of just going to end up with like a medium kind of bleh loaf of bread, which isn't really the vibe we're going for. How do I set up my oven? This is another important point, because I don't want to just slap this in there. I need to do something with it. So in my oven, oh, you can actually see, that's awesome. In my oven, it's super hot, so I'm standing back here. I have one rack in the middle of my oven, that's where the bread's going to bake on the pan. The other one has just a frying pan that's oven safe. You can use a cast iron, sometimes use a Dutch oven. I use whatever happens to be clean and doesn't have soup on it on my stove. You want that really ripping hot, because once you add the bread into the oven, wearing oven mitts, please, for the love of all that's good in this world, wear oven mitts for this step. Pour water in that preheated pan. Why, do you ask, am I risking steam burns? Why are steam burns important? Well, let me tell you. The steam from that pan is what's going to actually give your bread a crust. Because the steam is spread around your oven, especially if we don't have this on convection, the heat is kind of static. But by adding the water and creating that steam, it really helps with the crust development, and it means it's going to be nice and delicious and crunchy and good, and your whole family will eat. This is all that is left of the 2 loaves I made on Monday. It's Wednesday. So, this is how you make sourdough bread. I'll probably post some more pictures tomorrow on the old Instagram once I have this done, because, you know, pretty bread pictures. But thanks for sticking around with me today. As I said earlier today, we will have a regular live episode on Wednesday, just like normal. We're back on our normal schedule. I think we're going to be on the normal schedule for the rest of the summer, unless holidays come up that I haven't looked ahead of my calendar. We're taking it week by week. Thank you so much for joining me today. Full instructions are going to be up by Friday, because I don't think any of you are making sourdough bread in the middle of the week. So, goodbye!